from over there, then it's definitely wet over there. It's wet over there. The wind is coming this way.
Yeah. It's a bit...
Oh no. The wind's getting strong.
It's getting a bit wet.
What's the vibe? All right. Are we packing up?
I think we should back up because it's definitely getting more wet now.
All right.
Okay, I'm going to stop recording.
Okay. Great podcast.
All right, welcome back to HQLA. You're with Nathan Notley.
And Isaac Smith.
This is the most critical podcast, and it's critical that you listen to this today.
Absolutely critical.
Okay, so there's a particular company that I've been looking at recently.
All right, so this one you've talked about before to me. It's very interesting.
Yeah, so this one's called LMND. The ticker symbol's LMND. And if you had no idea what this company did, it'd be difficult to guess. They're actually an insurance company, but some would say they're a tech company. So a little bit of background for you. The insurance industry in the US is 11% of GDP. Right, so market size is good.
That's huge.
That is big, isn't it? I'd like to be able to compare that to something else, but I don't have those notes. So Lemonade itself launched in 2016 by some tech entrepreneurs, and it's actually certified as a B Corp, and that'll become relevant in a moment as I explain how the business works.
Okay, all right. A B Corp.
A B Corp. So that basically means...
Are you going to explain that?
Yeah. So it basically means that they're like certified as a company, that the practices they have are sustainable for the environment, and they're highly, highly regarded for consumers, and they're basically all of their financials and the way that they operate have been looked through meticulously, and they get this certification, and it gives the consumer extreme confidence in how they operate and how they spend their profits, and the sustainability in which they operate.
So that's one thing, you might not have heard of this, but that's something which is called a triple bottom line, or sometimes known as a quadruple bottom line.
Okay.
And don't ask me what each bottom line is, but one of them's the environment, one of them's looking after their people, you know, so... And one of them's looking after their customers, I guess. Yep. So it's all about sustainability and environment. So it's a very good way to operate, I think.
Yep. So the CEO and the co-founder is Daniel, and he only owns 0.6% of the company. So initially for me that's a red flag, just to be honest.
You definitely like huge founder owners.
Yeah. And but the other the co-founder, he's the COO, and his name's Shai, and he owns 6.3%. And so in my opinion, that's reasonable. And to date, they've raised 180 mil in funding. So a little bit about the company. Obviously, it's called Lemonade. I was watching an interview with Daniel, who's the CEO, and he was explaining the name. And it's multifaceted. He said that one of the main reasons for the name is because it doesn't have the normal words or phrases in the name that you'd expect in a lot of these American insurance companies. So he wanted to, because what the service they provide is so different to their competitors, they also wanted a name that completely stood them out. And then the other thing, little catchphrase that they use is, obviously they're an insurance company, so when you're an insurance company, you're dealing with people who are putting in claims for things that are maybe negatively affected their lives. So the little catchphrase is, when life gives you lemons, then make lemonade.
I like that. That's good.
And that's the name of the company. Okay, so here's some information about their customer experience. So basically, a customer can come and buy insurance in 90 seconds by speaking to an AI chatbot, and the chatbot's name is Maya or Maya, depending on how you pronounce that. So that's AI Maya, and she's a real person. She works in the company, and they've made an AI version of her. And so they keep a flat rate of 25% of premiums paid. So let's say that I pay $100 a year premium for my insurance, for my push bike or something that I want insured. $25 of that go to the company as a running expense for the company, pays their wages, pays real estate or anything else that they need to spend money on. The other 75% is what they use for people when they put claims in. Okay, so
Right.
if I put a claim in, it comes from that 75%. But if I'm the only customer and I don't put a claim in that year, then that whole 75% goes to a charity nominated from myself.
Wow, that's an interesting way to run.
So the reason why Daniel wanted to start this company is because he saw a disincentive between the customer and the organization, because if the customer puts in a claim for $1,000, then if the insurance company gives that customer $1,000, that's $1,000 that they can't keep anymore. They're now $1,000 poorer, and the person is $1,000 richer. So there's an incentive for the person to put in false claims to get more money, because they feel like they're hacking the system, and it's worthwhile because they're just getting this money from these massive corporations. And then on the flip side, there's an incentive for the insurer to not pay those claims, because that's money that's not any longer going to be on their bottom line.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so there's a bit of a conflict of interest. And so the way that these guys operate is, no matter what, they're going to take 25% operating costs, and that's what they're going to use for that. And then whether or not you put a claim in, they're not going to keep that money either way. They're either going to give it to you, or they're going to give it to a charity nominated for yourself.
That's a pretty incredible system, and I think that'll be something that's very popular when it comes to the people that are like the age group that they'll be going after. Will be like the younger kind of demographics. So they'll definitely be something that's super popular.
Correct. I suppose the younger demographics are becoming more aware and less susceptible to just going along with these big organizations and the norm. And so, yeah, what you're saying is totally right. So the power that we have as consumers is being given back to us. And so what else can I tell you? So let's say you've taken your insurance out, and it's taken you 90 seconds, and you've spoken to Maya. Then if you put in a claim, 1/3 of all claims are paid within 3 seconds.
Wow.
By speaking to AI Jim, who's also a real person.
Is Jim the claims man, and
Jim is the claims man, and Maya is the salesperson?
Are we talking like John Mayer or
Maya? Maya.
Okay, Maya. Okay, like Andrew Luigo. Yep, continue.
And okay, so they have a net promoter score, which is the chances of the people who are their customers actually promoting them to their friends and family, and their score is 70 out of 100, which is actually similar to companies like Apple and Tesla. So that's unheard of in the insurance business, right?
So this is like a certain measure which tells you how likely someone is to recommend.
That's right.
Okay.
And they've scored on that particular scale 70 out of 100, which is quite good. So another reason that makes them B Corp is they don't. So obviously, when they take your premiums, the 25% that they operate off, they invest that money, and so they don't invest into pollution. They don't invest into industries that promote pollution.
Ethical stuff only then.
Yeah. So the reason being, obviously, it's more ethical and stuff like that. But the logic behind it is, whether or not you believe either way, if you believe that global warming exists, which these guys are a firm believer in that, then if they are recommending or if they are investing into organizations or businesses that are creating more pollution, that's hurting the environment, and that's worsening global warming, and that's creating more claims because it's creating more natural disasters and stuff like that. And so that's their rationale for doing that.
That's a good way to do it, yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I never really thought about it in terms of cause and effect.
Yeah.
Like with insurance. Yeah, that's a good way to invest.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so in regards to the last, year-on-year performance, from Q2 2019 to Q2 2020, they've had 84% increase in customers, and so they're a total of a little over 800,000 customers total at the moment. 17% increase in premium per customer that customers are paying. So they're obviously taking out larger insurance claims. So it's not just, insuring their laptop now. They might be insuring their laptop, their bike, and this, and so their premium's a little higher. And then the final metric is their increase in gross profit, which is up 204% year on year. And that's now 7 mil as of Q2 2020. So they're profitable, so that's cool. Yeah, market cap of 5.6 billion, and the current price of 105 USD if you were going to buy.
105.
Yeah.
I was looking at this one the other day, and it was 60 65 or
yes,
something like
they've
that.
had a good run recently.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow, I'll have to pump some in.
Yeah, and so I'd recommend that. I think they're on a bit of a high at the moment, and they're going to keep going. And so, in regards to ownership, 8.3% individual insider. So you remember I said that the COO owns 6.7%. So obviously there's a couple of other board members, I think, who own just a very small percentage. So a little bit of individual insider ownership, but overall I think it's a really cool business, and it has the potential to disrupt the industry. So
definitely one to watch out for.
I think so. You been looking at any companies recently?
I have been looking at a company which you might have heard of. It's called Snowflake.
Yes, another meme stock.
Another meme stock. So it's not. So Lemonade wasn't a meme stock, no. But it's definitely one of those ones.
Last
like
week
Neo.
we talked about Neo, and that was definitely a meme stock.
Neo is such a meme stock. Yes. So Neo. What have we got? Microsoft was actually a meme stock for a little while. It was very random.
Okay.
But it was only a meme stock for about a week.
Oh, okay.
And so that was an interesting one. We've got Snowflake, which has been a meme stock for a bit, but it's died down a little, like the hype.
Okay.
And it was particularly a meme stock because Warren Buffett owns a $250 million stake in it, and he's someone who's very well known for not investing in tech.
Yeah.
So that's and still managing to outperform all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that he's kind of like, it's almost like he's 20 years late on deciding to invest in tech, because he's kind of realized, it's something that's here to stay, you know?
Yeah.
So I know that he bought Apple, 2 years ago or whatever, and that was the first tech thing that he'd ever bought.
Yeah.
And so yeah, he's invested in this one. So Snowflake is another, and I've realized that I haven't actually taken it seriously in terms of thinking about two different types of companies, because this one's another data one, but it's a little different to Palantir.
Yeah.
It's we talked about Palantir last week.
We did.
The Snowflake allows you to mass organize your data, and it definitely does it on the cloud. So
is this are they aiming at business to business transactions? Or
it's 100% business to business.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
So that's their main thing. So they're competing with, and it's I had to actually look into this a bit, because it's actually not something that is very commonly known, and it's also something that's not commonly explained. So it took a bit of research, but I got there.
Yeah.
So but it's one of the IPOs of this year. So it IPO'd, I think, 3 months ago, something like that.
This is your second IPO stock for the year.
Yeah, this is the second IPO.
We should do Airbnb next week.
Definitely Airbnb, but this one is this IPO'd at $120. I think within the same day, it got up to $245.
Wow, that's the memes.
And the current price is $334.
Really?
So it's really pumping. So it's tripled, but
it has.
The people that are the real winners are the angel investors and the VCs right at the start.
Isn't that always the case?
You see a public company that's up 300%. They're up 25,000%. They probably got the equivalent of $1 per share.
Yeah.
And now it's $3.30. So I assume they did. So it's got the owner who is the CEO is Frank Slootman. Interesting name.
Okay.
He's the CEO that did ServiceNow, which is a hugely successful another tech company.
I know ServiceNow.
So
he didn't found Snowflake.
I don't think he founded it, but he is the CEO. They brought him on. He's hugely successful.
Yep.
He's an interesting guy. They've also got the same CFO that did ServiceNow. So
really?
They brought him on as well. So it should be
That's an interesting fact.
It's a winning combo.
Yeah, it's a dream team.
And it's already so it's two guys that have obviously worked together before. And you don't see, I feel like when you have like a winner like that, you don't really move around, but these guys must just be really kind of entrepreneurial, looking for the new thing to build up. So
you're thinking if they see potential in it, then maybe we should.
Oh, for sure, yeah. So I think that they're really great with tech kind of stuff. And this one, all right, so I'll talk about the model of what they do before I actually talk about what they do.
Great.
So the business model is utilization model instead of subscription model, which means that everyone pays normally for most tech stuff. Everyone will pay $30 a month, $500 a month, whatever it kind of is, and they'll end up paying that, and it's a use as much as you want kind of platform, and everyone gets on it. The whole company pays per user usually, and they'll charge out that way, which is a great business model. It makes your income very consistent. So what Snowflake have done is actually, it's backwards thinking, but I actually kind of like it because it's something that's a bit, differentiates them a bit, I guess.
Yep.
So it's a utilization model.
Mm-hmm.
And what you do is you buy individual credits, and then you use the credits as you go from a business perspective. And so like any each activity kind of costs you 1 credit, and a credit might be valued at $1.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you move through the program, you only pay for what you use for.
Interesting.
Which is something that a lot of people would actually like.
You're paying in advance.
You're paying it as you use it. So you buy the credits in advance.
Yes.
And then you pay as you use credits.
Yes.
Essentially, you're paying out of their little system. So it's an interesting one. They're competing with. So and I watched a thing where the CEO was actually kind of talking about this. They're a customer of Microsoft and Amazon.
Yeah.
But they're also a competitor with Microsoft and Amazon.
Wow.
And so their main competition is Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud, and Amazon Web Service.
Yeah.
And they're actually they're competing with them, but they're also using some of their, and it might be on a different level. They're using some of their software to input. So I know that they used Excel to input at one point. Now I watched a demo on how they actually use the program.
Yeah.
So the program's actually it was a city bike demo.
Yeah.
And they actually take all of the rides from New York or whatever, and just compact it into this huge kind of database, and just upload it. And then someone else is working on analyzing the data at the same time. So, but what it's able to do is it's really clever at pulling all that data. So then what happens is the guy goes and he uploads. He's like, I wonder if there's a correlation between weather and age and riding a city bike in New York.
Yeah.
And so then they found that in February it was a bit colder and it was a bit more snowy.
Yeah.
And they could correlate the snow with way less use.
Yeah.
And they could correlate, and they found that the target demographic they should be going after is 20 to 30, so like late 20s, early 30s.
Right. So Snowflake crunched this data.
Yeah, so it crunched all that data and it found the weather versus the people that are using it, and found the demographic. So it's super useful on a business to business, like a large scale kind of business operation. So it's an interesting company. It's
that is interesting.
It's called a data warehouse of cloud computing. Yeah. So that's the industry that they're in, but they're currently managing 20% of the Fortune 500 companies' data. So
wow.
And I think it can only continue to grow from there, because it seems like it's a large scale data operation, and it seems like it's really well run. So those are my thoughts on it.
I like it. I'm always a little bit hesitant with B2B companies, just because I feel like they lack the retail market perception of them.
That's true.
You know, like
people can't physically go and use them.
They lose, there's no emotional connection. Whereas like if I buy a Tesla, or one day we're all driving Teslas, it's like obvious to everybody that this is something that's a mass product in the world. Whereas I suppose in my mind, it's just a thought, like in my mind, somewhere like something like Snowflake, which could have 80% of market share of all of those Fortune 500 companies, the average Joe doesn't know that.
But the interesting thing about one of the really interesting things about business to business like this is that they can actually use that. So like they can get those recurring billables. They can get. They don't have 1 million people to rely on. They've only got 20 people to rely on.
That's very true. It's good for their revenue.
They've got a really consolidated. So one of the great things is they've got a really consolidated list of customers, and they can put on. They can afford to put one really good salesperson on each customer. Yeah. They can pay that salesperson $500,000 and say, hey, just really look after Microsoft. Hey, really look after Amazon.
But then it's a big blow if they lose one of those customers.
Yeah, that's true. It does make it very undiversified, but it is nice and consolidated.
Yes.
So there's definitely huge pros and cons to both.
Yeah, I like it. Good combo.
Very good.
Do you want to restart that?
Yeah. That's embarrassing. No one else saw that, don't worry.
Okay. All right, so Lotus. So I had to phonetically spell out this company because the name is very strange.
Yes.
So Lotus, they've created a new hypercar. When I say new hypercar, they've never created one before. So it's their first ever hypercar.
Yep.
It's called the Evija.
Evija.
That's
Is that your best pronunciation? Did you practice that in the mirror?
I didn't practice in the mirror. I listened to a lot of YouTube videos, and that seemed to be the consensus.
Okay.
So if that's wrong, just comment it on Apple Podcasts.
Which you can definitely do.
And we'll comment back.
Sounds good.
Okay, so Lotus, they're built in Britain, obviously, British company, and this is actually going to be the most powerful production car in the world. And so it's 2,000 horsepower.
From a Lotus.
From a Lotus.
Wow.
This is from the company who, for many years, only built 4-cylinder sports cars. And now they're producing a 2,000 horsepower hypercar.
That's incredible, yeah.
It's incredible. Okay, so 1,700 newton meters of torque, over 200 miles per hour, $2.5 million.
It's quite the price tag.
It's quite the price tag. I'm not sure the total number of vehicles manufactured. I'd be interested in finding that out.
You'd assume that it's like 12.
You'd assume it would be something along those lines. Okay, so it's got 5 driving modes, right? Range, city, tour, sport, track. So range mode, as you'd expect, gives you the longest amount of range. So they really just reduced the horsepower down to 1,000. And it's only rear-wheel drive at that point.
Yeah, okay.
So it's got individual motors in each wheel, as you kind of come to expect with these electric hypercars. So that's range mode, only rear-wheel drive, only 800 newton meters of torque in that mode. City mode, the rear wing is deployed just lightly, and it uses a braking system that generates power when you brake. It's called
like a kinetic,
retention. I can't say it.
It's the same as KERS in an F1 car.
Yes, it's very similar.
Kinetic energy recovery or whatever.
Correct. And so at that point in the city mode, it's in action. Next mode's tour mode, 1,400 horsepower maximum torque, and it's intelligent motor systems between the wheels, so it's between 2 and 4-wheel drive, depending on how you're driving. And
like a Honda CR-V. Sorry, no, not like a Honda CR-V. I've offended someone.
Okay, and it's also obviously got the ability to raise the front lip and stuff like that if you're going over bumps on all of those modes up until that point.
That's something that's because supercars are just so impractical with that stuff. You're just always scraping, and you're like, that's $1,000.
There's nothing worse than scraping in your hypercar. And so the next mode is sport, 1,700 horsepower maximum torque. Track mode is max power, max torque. It's got carbon brakes. So batteries, obviously it's hypercar, so it's all electric. Battery placement's interesting. So in Teslas, you may or may not have seen, they put the batteries under the floor plan, like the floor pan of the vehicle. So you're basically sitting on top of them. Like the logic is that it's really low center of gravity, so the car handles really well. The issue with that is it means you're sitting quite high. So in a SUV or something like that, or even a station wagon, or a sedan or whatever the vehicle is, it's not a huge issue, and it still feels really good. But in a hypercar, you want to be sitting really, really low. That's kind of the expectation.
You definitely want to be as close to the floor as you can.
Correct. So if you've got sort of half a meter of battery under you, it's going to be less than ideal. So what they've done is they've basically mirrored their usual setup, which is the mid-engine. So they've got the batteries actually behind the driver, just between the driver and the rear wheels. So the thought being they know how to make a car handle with that kind of weight distribution. And so they've just continued along those lines. And so that's what they've done for this. A couple of interesting little quirks is on the back it's got a big Lotus badge kind of across the back. You'll see it
yeah, that's a real classic.
So Lotus, it's a classic thing.
We're talking like a Porsche Carrera kind of vibe.
Exactly.
Like you have it all the
so
way. Yeah.
The T's sort of in the middle, and that T lights up really bright and is actually the reverse light when you're reversing. Another interesting function is on the, if you've seen it, kind of has semi-gull wing doors.
Yeah.
And that you don't press anything on the car to open that. You press it on the key itself.
Yeah.
Press the key, door opens.
So there's no control to actually like go and open the door from the without the key.
The car itself. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. It doesn't have wing mirrors.
Doesn't have wing mirrors.
No, it doesn't have wing mirrors.
Oh, this is going to be some fancy tech.
Yes, it is. So instead, when you're in the car, it's got small screens on the inside of either door. And on the outside, it has these little cameras that just pop out and face backwards. And it displays that on the small screens on the inside of the doors, and that's your mirrors.
The cameras pop out, and you can
The cameras physically pop out.
Wow, all right.
So, yeah, so basically when you start driving, these two little cameras just slot out the sides of the car, like tiny little wing mirrors, and they just face backwards and give you that view.
That's a lot better than, say, a Lamborghini Countach or something, where you've got the engine in the back and you can't see through the back window.
Yeah.
Then you've got an impossibly far away mirror that you can't adjust.
Yes.
And then you've got to open the door and lean all the way out.
Yes.
So it's better than that, but I think it's potentially worse than is having like a mirror in a nice supercar, because my main issue is obviously what happens when it breaks.
Yep.
And you're trying to reverse and you can't.
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, I would say Lotus aren't necessarily known for their reliable electronics.
Yeah.
They're known for their sourcing good engines from Toyota.
Yes.
And they're known for their excellent handling.
Yeah, well, there's two things they can get there, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll see how they go with that. There's no Toyota engine in this one, so it's all handling.
Yeah, it's all handling.
And then the final one is you can customize your Lotus symbol on the front of the car. You can make it gold, or you can make it mirror, or whatever you want. So yeah, being someone who has regularly driven a Lotus.
Yes, you owned a Lotus.
Still do.
Still own a Lotus.
I would love to drive this car.
And what differentiates? So, like, where's the key differentiator for a Lotus versus, say, your Toyota MR2? Where is the main difference?
Price. There's a great community around having like Lotus ownership.
Yeah.
And I would say they're similar. Light. I'm not sure in particular about the Evija, but the Lotus that I have is aluminium monocoque chassis, and so it's extremely light. Something like 850 kilos in its current form.
Yeah.
And so the power weight ratio is just like nothing else.
Yeah.
So yeah, highly recommend if you can get your hands on one for a spin. It's great fun.
There's been a lot of people walking past. It's quite funny to watch them, because
coming back again.
They definitely have a he's very keen to be in the background. He's like, oh yes, I'm going to be famous.
Yeah.
I'm going to get 31 views on this video. I'm considering because like, if you stay here all day, maybe all day for a couple of days, it might take a couple of days.
Yeah.
You'd eventually get someone that would go and tell the lifeguard and be like, hey, these guys are doing illegal activity.
Correct.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's always that guy. All right, there you go.
Let's
Lotus Evija. Just transition.
Yeah.
We're getting better at the transitions. I'm getting a bit hungry.
Ready for lunchtime?
I think so.
Well, you'll have to wait until I'm finished with the Porsche Taycan, because this car is hella interesting.
Is it?
So I had no idea that the Lotus you were going to do earlier had was fully electric.
Okay.
So I've also gone for a fully electric car.
True.
It seems like we're the electric cars podcast now at this point with Neo and...
It's the future, bro. It's the future.
And I'm mainly comparing it to, and wait for it, Tesla, obviously, because that's where its key competitor is.
Good.
Now, I've been told this car was the second most hyped electric vehicle. Don't look that up. And it's after
what was the first?
After the Tesla Model S.
Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yes. If you haven't heard of that one, you should maybe wake up from your coma.
Yeah.
So obviously I had the same note here, which is the batteries on the floor for the low weight distribution.
So they are like that in the Porsche. Is that what you're saying?
They're like that in the Porsche.
Are they?
Yes.
So they're not behind the seat.
They're not behind the seat.
So they've completely changed their weight distribution.
Yes, because you would get in a 911, you would get obviously
all
right
in the back.
Yeah.
Wow.
So this one is the Taycan comes in 3 different options. It's got the Taycan 4S, which is
that how you say it?
Well, how would you say it?
Taycan.
Sorry, Taycan.
No, I don't know. This is your segment.
Hey, no, I don't know either.
Good.
So my main issue with this one and I regrettably to say this,
Okay.
I've only watched videos of it which are by Americans, which means that it's definitely going to be the wrong pronunciation.
Yeah.
But Taycan is how I will pronounce it from now on.
Okay.
So the Taycan comes in 3 different options. It's got
Yep.
the 4S, which is 390 kilowatts.
Yep.
Now, one thing that's interesting with the electricals, it's interesting to like. It's interesting to consider them as kilowatt hours, like whatever they're, because I don't really understand the full metrics around the electrical side of it. The turbo comes
Even
in.
the way you say electrical.
Electrical
shows that.
Electronical vehicle.
That's fine.
That's a proper old.
We're all here to
person.
learn.
Yes,
Including both of us.
EVs.
Yes, EV vehicles.
I definitely know EV vehicles. The Taycan. So then it goes turbo.
Yes.
This is interesting because I don't think it's got a turbo. It's just the old naming convention.
Yes.
For something that's a little bit faster on the Porsche.
Yep.
Which I don't love it how they've done that, but it's all right.
It is following in the footsteps of Porsche to just take something and slightly change it, but always keep something that feels like it's a Porsche. You know, like even the look of the Porsche, they always look similar. Oh, this one is this the one where they have the big brake light across the back?
I think that one is the. I think that there's a more sporty, like it might be the next model.
It's not the Taycan.
Actually, it might be.
Okay.
I should have looked into
that.
It could be. I should have looked into that one further.
Well, we'd look it up, but we don't have any
internet.
So we'll continue. Sorry.
Yes, but the
turbo,
and then it goes to the Turbo S, which is 560 kilowatt one.
Kilowatts. Wow.
So that's
awesome.
That's pretty cool. It's a pretty powerful car. Which its range on the original, so like on the lower quality one, not the lower quality, the bottom of the spec, the bottom of the barrel, is a 414 kilometer range.
Yes.
And so obviously and naturally you would want to know how it does in a drag race versus a Model S. So
I would.
So I found.
So this is the base model, or this is like
this is the top. So we went for the top flagship.
Yeah.
We went to the top flagship, and then
versus
we went
a Model S.
And then we went to the Model S flagship.
P100D.
Yeah. So we're talking this the.
But not the plate edition.
No, not that one.
Okay.
So it's the general accepted flagship of the Tesla.
Good. Yeah.
So dual motors. The Tesla Model S is an 825 horsepower. I'm sorry to switch our metrics. 825 horsepower, 1300 newton meters of torque.
500 and how many?
So that was kilowatts. So the Turbo S is 761 horsepower.
Okay.
So it's a little less than the Tesla. The Tesla has 1300 newton meters versus the Porsche's 1000 newton meters.
Okay.
And the Tesla is actually slightly lighter. They're 2200. They're both 2200 kilograms.
Yeah.
The Porsche Taycan is actually 2295, so it's very close to 2300.
Yes.
Whereas the Tesla is 2241. So they
very similar.
So the Tesla is lighter, more powerful, and it's got more torque.
Do we know which one is all-wheel drive and which one is rear-wheel drive? Are they all just all-wheel drive?
I believe that they're both all-wheel drive.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The Model S.
All that torque, you'd have to think so.
I think they're both all-wheel drive.
Okay.
And they both. It's so interesting to watch this drag race, and this is based on one guy reviewing it, so it might be skewed. It might be
give it to us.
Not as scientific. The Porsche won both times that they ran, and it's less powerful. It's got less thing.
What?
It pulled ahead. It pulled ahead faster.
What?
And then on the first one, it pulled ahead faster, but I think it could have been a bit of a driver error situation.
Yeah.
So they ran it again, and I think they ran it a third time, and the Porsche. There was one run where they took off at the exact same in the first 100 meters. They were kind of the same.
Yeah.
And then the Porsche would just start pulling ahead.
Really?
So it's great to see Tesla, who aren't a racing company.
Yeah.
Doing that well versus Porsche, who have been doing it for 100 years.
Yeah.
It's also great to see that Porsche can still make more out of less, because that's something that they're very well known for, is making it all happen out of a very usually low power setup. So
it's good to see competition on both sides, you know?
Yeah.
Because that's what we want. We don't want Tesla just to be always blowing everyone out of the party.
Yeah, and you've got to remember that Tesla has been around for 13 years or something.
Yeah.
But you've also got to remember that Tesla's only been doing electric, and Porsche's only started doing electric very recently.
Correct.
So I don't honestly know which one's the underdog in this in this scenario.
It's true.
It's hard to know who to root for, but
write it in the comments.
Yeah, which one's your favorite? So one thing with the Taycan that everyone seems to note is the interior is super well done.
Okay.
It's a bit of a different vibe because the Tesla has that huge panel next to you, and that's like, it's just a giant iPad, and that's pretty much all
it's
there
super
is.
simple.
But it's also it's a bit bare bones. It's a bit
no, definitely.
It's not as good as most luxury cars would be.
Yeah.
So the Porsche comes with a vegan option for its trim, which is so it's a bit more of a common thing now, I guess. You wouldn't find that 10 years ago.
You wouldn't find that 5 years ago.
You wouldn't, It's something that's a bit of a trend, but I guess billionaires are getting conscious. So, or anyone that can afford this car. It's got a huge curved display for your dashboard, which is really cool.
Yeah, right.
So it's like a real gamer kind of monitor.
Awesome.
So that's really cool.
And ultra wide.
Yeah, it's really good. So and then it's got all the buttons that you would need to operate. So instead of having levers on the side of the steering wheel, it's got all the buttons you would need. So the headlights, all that kind of stuff. You press them on the side of the screen. They've because they've got the so
you have to take your hands off the steering wheel to turn the lights on.
Yeah, but it's got I assume that would be automatic. But if you want to do it manually and stuff, they would have they've got all the buttons that are like right next to the screen. I don't even know if you would have to take your hands off. It's like that close.
Interesting.
But yeah,
we'll have to look at some photos.
We'll definitely have to look at some photos. But it comes with the panoramic glass roof.
Oh yeah, that's a good vibe. That's almost a necessity nowadays.
It's very cool. It looks very cool.
So my dad just ordered a new Hyundai N.
Oh, don't tell me it's got one of them. It's got a panoramic.
It has a panoramic sunroof.
Well, okay, that's less impressive from Porsche now, but maybe more impressive for Hyundai. It's
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's good. It's got a one thing that's cool is you can put your phone. It's got a little nest for your phone.
Yep.
You can put it in there and it'll charge wirelessly.
Love that. I love it when companies are up with the times.
Yeah,
They've
definitely
realised that everyone's still everyone has phones now.
It's also got USB-C ports everywhere, which is really cool.
That's awesome.
It's definitely future thinking, and it's got a couple more screens. So it's got the standard GPS that you would look at.
Yep.
And then it's also got another screen for climate control stuff.
Yep.
So there's no real kind of buttons.
Yep.
To worry about pressing.
Yep.
In terms of so we'll move on to efficiency. In terms of efficiency, and this is what I could find, the Taycan 4S, which is the standard model, does, and this is going to be a new measure because normally you would look at liters per 100.
True.
It does 27 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So
that seems.
Anyone who knows what that is
seems good, doesn't it?
Anyone who knows what that is would be impressed. But until they learn that the Tesla Model 3 does 11.9, so it does significantly better. The best that I could find for the Model S was about 23. So
it's really similar.
Yeah, so it's similar to similar to that. So I don't know what the Model 3 is doing. I guess it's much less powerful. So you would assume
it's less powerful. Yeah, I mean, you could look at it two ways. It's less powerful, and so, but maybe it needs to work harder to, keep up to speed and stuff like that. So maybe it's going to be less efficient, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, and I guess we're talking dual motors versus Tesla Model 3 would only have one.
Yeah.
So I assume you could cut that in half by having not a dual motor.
Oh yeah.
Because they're both the Model S and the Taycan or whatever it's called, the Porsche. Are both dual motor, so
gotcha.
You got to consider that as well.
Yep, good.
So the price. This is where it gets very interesting.
Yes.
This is where it gets very interesting because I found that the Tesla was actually more expensive than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Because I went for the full. I went to each place's website, so not going to be the cheapest spot to get it.
Yeah.
You get a better option probably at a dealer.
Okay.
Went to each website and I went for the base model of both options.
Yep.
With no options, no frills.
So this is the Model S and the Taycan.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And I went for both of them, and I went with the on-road drive-away kind of cost instead of
yes
what it says that it would be, because there's certain prices where it's like from 100 grand, whatever. But it actually costs something else.
Yep.
So the Porsche was, and this is the 4S base, was 211,573.
Yeah.
And that's the base model.
That's expensive.
With none of the options. The Model S base came to 141k.
Yeah.
So it's.
Are we talking Aussie?
Yeah, in Aussie.
Yeah.
So this is in
it's
the
not
Aussie
cheap.
stores.
You don't really consider that because you see a few Model S's getting around nowadays, and it starts to become the norm. But you do have to remember that people are spending upwards of $140,000 on these cars.
You got to remember as well when you hear Elon say, "Yeah, we're doing 70k for a Model S," and then you think, okay, that's actually USD.
Yep.
Which means that it's 100, and then you've got all sorts of luxury taxes and on-road costs in Australia. So
yes,
yeah,
yep.
But yeah, really interesting comparison. So
yeah, I appreciate that. Well done.
Thank you. I appreciate you appreciating it.
Good. Okay, that's that. Do you want to talk about auctions, and then we'll call it a day?
I'd rather not talk about auctions.
It was your friggin' idea.
I didn't have time to look up everything.
Nor did I. Well, I did, but I didn't have any internet. So
no.
All I can see is Elvis Presley.
This is a disaster. You know what?
I've got one. What I was going to talk about was a violin from the Titanic, Elvis Presley's underwear, Winston Churchill's dentures, and there was a bag of air from a famous person, but I can't remember who that was.
A bag of air.
Anyway, on next week's... Let's go on.
Well, that's all right. We can just...
All right. We should wrap up.
What's our exit line?
Okay, this has been HQLA episode 2. I've had fun.
I've had a lot of fun too. Don't
forget, it's critical that you listen to this podcast, but since you've gotten this far, I'm assuming you already have. So tell your friend it's Chris.
That's fine.
It's
Continue.
So
keep it rolling.
Hard.
Keep it rolling.
Why did we choose something where we have to talk?
It's very critical that you listen to this podcast, and that's it from us.
Thank you.